All right. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right, let's get into this. The title of tonight's episode, it's as if there are two ways that that sentence can be heard. That the entrance, how light is entering at the darkest hour in reality, and how one enters light at the darkest hour of their reality. I find that we human beings, there is something that is defining us massively, like incredibly. It's defining us, and it is the fact that things change. And what that means is that the satisfaction we seek in regards to who we are is not per se a certain snapshot of an achievement, but it is a dynamic relationship. It's as if it's a dance with the world you got to maintain, rather than just a sort of ideological or objective or subjective oriented kind of desire of life. For me, I have, it's, how can I tell you, it's as if my mind has oscillated between considering and concluding reality's organization. So what that means is, there's been moments I've looked at the cosmos and I have been convinced that there is a hidden design that the world is found meaningful in. So what I mean by that is that I've looked at the skies and they have been meaningful for me at certain moments. I've also looked at the sky and it has been meaningless for me. To be honest, I find that this life is sculpting itself in accordance to the laws of nature. And we are a sphere of the ability of nature to separate from itself. And so what it means is that there's this huge idea that, you see a cell and the cell divides itself into two of the same cell. And it's as if there was a world and the world divided itself into two worlds. And so the objective and the subjective realm share a similar framework. It's as if your inner life and your outer life are gazing at the same thing. But the thing that you're looking at is attributeless. That means it's as if a person speaking to a tree. I remember seeing a person who would see trees and would touch them as if they were old friends of their soul. The world must be befriended And in order for the world to be befriended, the mind has to be befriended. And in order for the mind to be befriended, the self has to be content. And in order for the self to be content, it has to see itself. And the ultimate view of seeing the self is in some sense realizing how consciousness and existence are simultaneous. Consciousness and matter are simultaneous in the attention of man that stands as the presence of the world. And so, what shall the presence of the world do? You see, it's as if you're not here to just comprehend the mind of other people when you are going about the day. You're also here to comprehend the rhythms of nature. And the rhythms of nature are found by those people who, in some sense, they just do an action, and the action is a sort of energetic alignment, a sort of like as if they're playing an instrument, and in the middle of that instrument the person can let go of the subjective realm, and it becomes very fascinating because that's when your subconscious moves your objective body. Right now it's kind of like we have the car, the vehicle of our manifestation, in manual. So in some sense, the conscious mind is dictating. Therefore, consciousness brings it with itself a lot of responsibility. But the unknown and the unconscious, if you were to, in some sense, identify with the unknown, you would not be responsible for a changing world. You would simply become the eyes that were never here. And many human beings go this path. I got shocked. I thought it was kind of the way out, but there came a moment in my life where behind my eyes I had an experience where I felt I had completed my lifetime. I literally felt I had lived enough as a manifest being. But something strange happened. I felt I reached the end of my lifetime only to realize why I had begun it. There is this incredible ancient story of these three dervish friends. And this is one of the most important stories that can enter the ears of a listener. So what is the story? Three friends. They are walking at the edge of town and they notice for the first time there is a giant wall, you know? And this giant wall appeared out of nowhere at the edge of their town. And so these three friends are walking and they're like, wow, look at this wall that came out of nowhere. How strange. And as they're walking beside it, one of them sees a ladder in the distance, a ladder that goes to the top of the wall. Imagine if the ladder was like halfway up to the wall. The ladder goes up to the wall. And so one of the three friends, the first one to see the ladder, runs to the ladder and says, guys, I'm climbing up. Let's see what's on the other side. And so he climbs the steep ladder and he gets to the top, and the two friends from the bottom are looking. And the first friend, it's as if the two friends are seeing this guy just climb up the ladder. The moment he gets up to the ladder, it's as if what he sees on the other side makes him instantly jump in. So the two friends see the first friend jump in and they're like, whoa, where'd that guy go? You know? And so the second friend's like, okay, let me check it out. And the second friend climbs. The second friend gets to the top as the third friend is seeing it. And the second friend gets to the top and he sees what the first friend saw. He sees that on the other side of this wall of their town, there was the garden of paradise. Pretty much it's the garden of the heavens. It's paradise. So the first friend saw paradise, he jumped in straight away. The second friend sees paradise, he's like, oh my God, the garden of heaven is here, the garden of paradise is here. You know, and in that instant, the second friend, before he jumps in like the first one, he gets a feeling. He gets a feeling. And he looks back. And he sees the third friend just waiting there clueless. And he looks at the third friend and he's like, at least I should let him know. And he says, hey man, the Garden of Paradise is on the other side of this wall. The first friend jumped in, I'm going to jump too. And both friends jump in and they instantly become Buddhas. The third friend begins climbing. The third friend gets to the top. And there he sees what the first two friends see. The third friend looks, and this is the moral of the story here, guys, where the third friend looks at the Garden of Paradise and says, oh my gosh, the Garden of Paradise is here. And then in that instant, before his feet jumps, he takes his feet off the wall. He suddenly starts climbing down the ladder. The whole world should know. And that's my point. The whole world should know. That's the next level of honor. It's easy to honor people's physical actions. It is not easy to honor people's non-visible actions. We are magnificent creatures in the most fascinating situation ever. You see, life is an experiential thing. More than it's an existential idea, it is an experiential journey. And anybody who forgets the journey is most likely in a box of thought. And we cannot avoid these boxes of thought. We cannot avoid how the voices of society will enter our ear. No child can avoid their conditioning. It's just literally what you're exposed to as a living being. But what you're exposed to may give you a certain impression of who you are, but the newest moment of your life can also be a new value. That's something I didn't understand when I was younger. I felt who I was, I had to always be. I did not consider that thought moves faster than matter. This is why my life was defined by my thoughts. When I realized thought changes, it's as if a thought lives and dies much quicker than matter, a material phenomenon. At some point, you have to let go of any reason that is a voice of the past. I firmly believe this. Let me tell you why. The past is only a point of reference. And without the past, the present is unknown. So, in some sense, the past is past, and the past is where versions of yourself lived and died, and now they are alive in your memory or as memory. My relationship with memory and thought, of course, Me personally, it changes for me in my inner realms. Like, just take into consideration this point that children, a young child, can take a doll or a toy or a teddy bear and give it a personality. You can give it a personality. The child gives it a personality, its teddy bear becomes its best friend. Now, if we can make teddy bears into our best friends, there is no doubt that we can also imbue personality to subjective phenomena. That means not only an object like that teddy bear can be animated or given life, but subjective phenomena also can be given. And this is so crucial. This is something that so many people who run after divinity find themselves in the labyrinth of their mind. Divinity is something that you can only see it if you have seen yourself enough. That means as long as a selfish mode of perception exists, you are filtering external truth in accordance to you, not in accordance to what external truth may be. What that means is a person meets someone and they get an impression. They get an impression of who that person is. But that impression is not the person. That means people have only known fragments of one another in various moments. To truly know someone else on like a literal level means to have the same eyes. So if we were to, as creatures, to completely and purely understand each other, it would be a war of language as we see going on. Now, this war of language is very fascinating. And let me tell you why it's a war. It's a war because everybody wants to be king. That's why. You know, if nobody wants to be king, there is no groups to fight against one another. That means it's like everybody knows with any good thing, there is a view of the bad. So anytime I have experience a bad moment, it opens my attention to how the world could be good. Anytime I have a good moment, it opens my attention to how the world can be bad. Because how we position ourselves in the spectrum of thought, pretty much how we are a thought, suggests how the world is a thought. So, how fascinating is it, guys, that energy is being conceptualized through the dualistic framework of language only to be rediscovered as an attributeless phenomena? So, let me tell you what I mean by this attributelessness. This attributelessness doesn't mean there is nothing there. Because I'm sure that some people who listen to these Mr. Within talks that I give, I'm kind of pointing towards the soul being more than a noun and being an attributeless witness of the moment. That means the intelligence that observes is not the same intelligence as the object. of observance. But the intelligence that observes the subject is. Do you see? So how someone is a person to you has to do with you. Do you see? Excuse me. To truly bring change in this world, we cannot change the world. We cannot change the values in the eyes of others. The human being becoming aware of its self-reflective intelligence means it is allowing for a moment, like this is the uniqueness of the human species. The human species is one of the rare moments in the cosmos where the creation can experience being a creator. The world is the artwork of, playfully you can say, the creator, God. But you can say the self is the artwork of the self. Because if you are created, you are denied from the creator's intelligence. And if you are the creator, the creation is inseparable to you. So what it means is human existence is occurring between two empty worlds. We're sandwiched between emptiness as there are dimensions. So you can say the multidimensionality of this world is like a really long sandwich, you know? A sandwich that is made with different layers of bread, you know? So like bread, vegetables, meat, and then another bread, vegetables, meat, another bread, vegetables, meat. And it's one of those things where it's as if every part of this hamburger is different. You see, it's like the what constitutes the moment is vast change. And when we wonder what vast change is, if we are lost to atomic thinking, at most, if you want to think of the universe atomically existing, it means that from nothingness something poured in. That means as if like the sink was dry and then suddenly somebody, emptied like, you know, cold tea. And so what I'm saying is it's like there is space, there is no definitions, no words, nothing, pure silence and stillness, not even the concept of the cosmos, and then intelligence poured in. So we are still as a civilization using the container theory of knowledge. What that means is we're trying to contain, we're trying to relate. Logic without a foundation cannot exist. You see, logic will forever fight to protect history because it needs the past to be a sort of system. Most people are defined by their past. When you're defined by your past, you will, in some sense, feel defeated externally. If you're identified by your future, how would I say it? It's like the more you try to identify with the future, you will see it will never be as accurate as you considered it. And you will see when you consider the past, whatever beauty was has passed away. You see, the concept of passing away doesn't necessarily mean a person or a being dies. It simply means they have passed away from your moment of conception. And so the most crucial thing is to roar as a conscious being into the in front of the unknown audience of this cosmos. That is mankind's power, that it is opening its eyes to the endless. And I find it hilarious. We are finite beings, but we have infinite desires. We are temporary creatures, but we seek eternal salvation. Look at how the mind of nature has in some sense, extended forth man's mind. It acknowledges where it is, but it can acknowledge other moments it can exist in. So we're not just a state of mind that is in one state. We are actually the intelligence that observes one state and can consider how the state moves into being other states. What it means is that there's a part of your intelligence, regardless of if your body is here or not, regardless if your mind is here or not, it is here. It is how can I tell you? It's so hilarious that it is the here and now. It is existence's raw form, which is inconceivable, which cannot be contained by man's language. And that's why I've brought forth the concept of the language threshold, the edge of our communicatable experience. So what it is that I realize, how do we attain balance? There is never like one vision everybody agrees. It's like you can't sell tickets to every person on the planet. If you were, for example, a rock star or something, you see that there's a certain range of influence allowed. You might not believe it, but there has been certain moments sometimes my attention, there are moments throughout the day where I find my attention is, it stands as my unknown presence. And in those moments, I get a sort of sensitivity to change. That means it's like if life was a film, you're kind of seeing the camera crew and behind the set a little bit. So there are moments where in this existence of mine, where throughout the day come certain questions. And so I know that there are many levels to life, and the way these levels come about is they can change quickly or not. Somebody who is under the impression that life is not working out for them is in some sense throwing that idea out there. You have to realize your attention gives life to the design. So right now as I'm speaking, if I was to imagine, just think of one word. Imagine the word love. Okay, imagine I was just to meditate like an extreme, religious yogi back in the day, just saying the mantras, just be like love, 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 love. Like imagine I start saying these mantras. Eventually you will realize the action is not, the doer is not, how do I say it? The actor is not the real self. Shapes come and go. We are a beam of attention in the darkness of this world. Rabindranath Tagore has this quote where he says, faith is the bird that feels the sun while it is dark. And there have been certain people who have said it's like in the darkest hour of night that dawn comes. If you notice, a lot of themes in the stories that entertain, that truly reach the hearts of human beings, they have to do with profound analogies and metaphors for nature. I'm not joking. Mythology is not just like gods in the air. It is in some sense explanation of the world that was accessible to that poet. And we as a species are not even aware of the value of language. I am telling you, I have learned to use language like a sword and a shield. And I've even found moments where I had to let go of my knowledge, because if I was holding on to it, I was defined by it. The Yoga Patanjali Sutras tell us your consciousness, this soul that we people are talking about. What is this soul? This soul is a glass orb. Your consciousness is a glass orb. This glass orb, hence why I say attributeless all the time. This glass orb moves around many colored surfaces. Therefore, it takes the color of the moment. You become defined by your environment, but you are not your environment. This is why I have seen literally in my lifetime, I don't know, but there were moments where I saw people who the cultural program was stronger than their free will. You see, I find there's two modes in this life. There is either the victorious or the defeated. Okay? In this life, people are either going up or going down. Okay? Now, what that means is every creature is experiencing phenomenology, fundamentally. They're experiencing a moment. Carl Jung says, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you will call it fate. Man has to not be careful of wild beasts attacking him, but he has to be careful of wild ideas attacking him. And an idea that is given to someone at the wrong moment will make them avoid that idea. I have noticed this. For me, it's I became a student of life from the moment I was born. Before I could speak, the mind had patterns of its own, and that is the brilliance of how the book of our DNA is written. Nature writes too, but it writes in manifestation. You see, nature is the true poet. This is why how can I tell you? Think of it this way: there are many philosophies, countless philosophies of various human beings. That means when you think about the planet right now, you say, okay, there's been 8 billion and growing people on this planet currently in 2019. And so there's 8 billion of us. Now think about this. How many human beings have walked the earth, though? When you ask that question, that means think of every human being that has lived and died on this earth. That number would be immense by now. That means considering all the civilizations from the origin of our civility. Those who understand their mind is like the sky, they become the master of the earth. What that means is they are aware of the field of intelligence, then the sort of way it becomes particular. The particles move in space. So you see, you are either in allegiance with form or the formless. And I don't want to make it kind of like you got to choose a side. I'm just saying that reality has to do with where your attention is going. So that it's like you. I don't understand why people go to. I mean, it's not like I don't understand, but it's like I am against another person trying to live the life of for other people. So let me tell you what I mean by that. I mean that imagine you go to the therapist and the therapist is sitting there, the psychologist or whatever. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be anyone. It could even be a family member or something, somebody you're talking to. And so imagine that this person you're talking to starts assuming they know who you are. I have understood something that turns off everybody, every human being, is the assumption that another, like other sets of eyes other than their own can know who they are. You see, there is a sort of privacy policy of nature That's what imagination is. It comes in your own room. That means right now as I'm speaking, like for example in this room that I'm in, I can imagine like, you know, a golden cube kind of spinning in the air so quickly that I can't even make sure it's a cube or not, you know. It's as if speed changes form. What we have to recognize is we can never be dependent on form because it changes. That means if we think we are purely objective beings, language is a strange hallucination of electrons. And we're pretty much reaching a point where we're like, okay, electrons got so sophisticated they became a mind. How cool are electrons, guys? But we're not just on an atomic level valid as creatures. You see, the way we should consider the dimensions to our existence is between what we have put there and what was there before we were born. And so what I first noticed is that, especially I noticed it in my youth, because you know, I was born in Iran, and in Iranian culture, families are a big deal. And so there was like when I was super young, it's like we had a giant family. I would, you know, and so I remember when I would go in there, it would be a situation where you have to be humble. It's like there right now as I'm speaking, think about I'm in a moment of expression, but there's so many people silently just listening. Now there will come a time where they will have to express too, and then we like you oscillate between being observer and then being the actual experience of the moment. So I have noticed that it has to do with fundamentally how all of life is coming down to one story. And that story is not something that the conscious mind can even at first realize. It's an ancient, it's literally how the mind was created while being observed. And there's, don't think, and I'll tell you something even hilarious. Right now, we're building a society that we're basing, for example, we have a common point, a common reference point of the norm. Okay, so we're like, okay, things are good this way, so this is the basic, like this is the starting point. And then if we go below the start, below the norm, it's like not good. If we go above the norm, it's great, but then it becomes irrelevant to the norm. What that means is just like the story I told you, the two friends that went to heaven became no longer relevant to the earthly plane. Think of it this way. Think of it that every person who looks at the world, whatever they see, they have to put it in. Imagine the mind is like a box, and everything you see, you're putting in this box. And what that means is your mind can have a certain organization where it consciously chooses where thoughts go, and you have to figure it out as a person. For example, for me personally, I was trying the analytical approach towards knowledge. That means I was trying to just go through various documentations of what the world seems to be. And so I walked, you know, in mountains of kind of linear ideology for a long time, you know. I am kind of like a playful yogi of the mind. I've sat in certain ideologies like caves just wondering about their design, you know? So, life transforms. Who you are now listening to my talk, if you were to listen to my talk in like some time after this, whatever time that was, it would be a different talk. And that's my point. The moment we come to judge someone in accordance to a certain norm or a reference point, we see the person has changed, you know? And why else would the concept of a promise exist? When someone promises something, that means it's like the person saying, all right, from now on, I will consciously align to this kind of behavioral system. Because to be honest, religion is a behavioral system. If all ideology, it's like that's, I think, psychologists speak out much on. Today's society, you start off as a kind of novice, a student, and then through a sort of mentorship of what the world has is giving you access, you in some sense elevate to becoming a sort of professional. So you see, you start off as a new person, and then after long periods of experience, constant repetition, kind of like a blacksmith hitting his sword to make it straight in accordance to the electromagnetic field of the earth. Similarly, thought, the winds of evolution are just for now moving subjectively. Life is strange, and I feel that's the strange, that's the unique thing about freedom. You know, when you give, there's this saying that says too much freedom is can bring chaos. How can too much freedom bring chaos? Because the extremes of freedom even gives freedom for chaos to exist. That means the ultimate freedom given to chaos and the ultimate freedom given to order are the same moment. And really, I realize it's all stories. I'm telling you, it's all like massive language worship, you know? Like, I'll give you an example of this. Imagine someone, I've seen this literally on YouTube. There was this kind of notable intellectual, atheist who kind of made fun of this kind of spiritual doctor on YouTube, okay? And the atheist denied the validity of the spiritual doctor by saying that it is man-made, right? It's saying like we shouldn't worship that. But we see it's not per se worshiping or learning or paying attention. It's pretty much in emptiness. Sight has originated. Beams of attention have originated. Spotlights of attention have originated. And where is this spotlight being pointed to? Because the concept of worship, it's like if it has to do with what your attention is on, so technically wherever your attention is on, you're worshiping that thing, are you not? Right? Like it's like that moment when you're, pouring a glass of water for yourself, you're worshiping that moment, your attention is there, right? And human beings, we carry a sort of emotional burden. Now, ooh, this is opening up too many dimensions for one talk. When life breaks you, you have nowhere else to go but to be fixed. And when you have been completely fixed, there is nowhere else to go but to be broken. And so the concept of karma, as Buddhist thought introduced to mankind, yogic thought, how would I say it? The center of the wheel of karma doesn't spin. That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to that it's constant, endless spiraling of values, this life. That means it's like very obvious. Throughout the day, a person's emotions fluctuate, a person's thoughts fluctuate, even a person's physical body, if they're too extreme, can change. And so, if we can see the light, we may feel we are the darkness. If we can see the light, we may feel we are the darkness. And if we see the darkness, we may feel we are of the light. It's just what you're tuning into. Life is hilarious. I am telling you, the only way to be alive in this world is to be playful with it. What that means is expect, apply your mind like a tool. You see, the mind, your energy and intention, emotion, like communication. Let me tell you what, like, oh man, it's like I'm seeing a picture in my mind now. I just want to explain it. If I was, I have this kind of vision in my mind where I visualize myself kind of somehow walking past a cave where a yogi is meditating in samadhi, and I see this yogi waking up, and this yogi comes up to me and starts scolding me. You know, I have had very random moments in this life where life has come to scold me. Let me tell you what I mean by that. That means literally chaos has approached me first in the moment. And so, the beautiful thing about the scars that we get is that they remind us of what we lived through. I would say to that yogi who perhaps is like right now, I'm animating it, but I'm just imagining like a traditional, ancient mindset of an enlightened person challenging me, right? You don't understand. I have been blessed with something in this life, and that is to fall down first compared to many people. I feel my failures have come quickly because every life has success and failure. It's just when is it coming? I don't know how to say it, but it's like a dervish saying. I remember the dervish Sufi quote that could just satisfy what I'm trying to say. You can the person who tries to escape reality and get enlightened, who tries to run away to find freedom, your mind will be locked in a runaway mentality because there was something important you had to do and you didn't. This is, of course, intense level of regret, and it's like we're not perfect creatures. We're not like robots that we can all the time process data accurately in accordance to everything that's going on. We are known bodies with unknown minds. I feel that's a kind of global way I can say it. In the darkest hour, this bird that is flying, imagine this bird who is trying to get to its destination, and it's been flying so long, eons, lifetime after lifetime. This bird is flying in the darkness of the consequences of its design. And so as this bird is flying, one lifetime, one moment comes where this bird looks around and sees pure darkness, sees the ultimate manifestation of chaos. And in that moment, in the darkest hour of night, this bird who feels it's like there is no point, it's time to let go, darkness has engulfed the world, what can we do? And so in that moment, this bird that is about to stop flapping its wings in the darkest hour of night, suddenly its wings, instead of stopping, they get more energetic. And the bird realizes a strange warmth is appearing on its body. And so the bird realizes dawn is coming. You see, it's as if it all has to do with sequencing action consciously. It's as if you can't, expect to find your keys in the yard at night. Most human beings, I pretty much feel the human viewpoint, okay, has to do something. And let me tell you why. Because we are like a battery pack that every night we sleep, we rest, we charge up. So we're kind of like this phone that has a design and it deserves to be used. It's kind of like we are a phone that we use it for the whole day and you charge it. Our waking life is kind of an allowance of our energy levels. Guys, I truly believe orange juice, like cold orange juice, can bring world peace. Life is space, and space holds form, and form is designed to move. And in some sense, movement becomes a multidimensional dance in a singular dimension. Kind of like, just like the person has to stretch their muscles, the mind has to stretch its dimensions. And that includes not only just the objective stretching, not a sort of subjective stretching, but also an emotional stretching. Imagine you're stretching your emotions. Because I'm telling you, every person who wakes up You have to stretch your mind. You have to literally snap yourself into the novel, into the new. It's fascinating. You can totally speak about the mind as a sort of landscape, internal landscape. Let me tell you why. Because we are travelers. That means we used to be tribes of people who lived in a certain part of nature, and after we hunted and gathered all that resources, we would move to another location. So similarly, I find we're doing the same thing, but in thought and as thought. And so this is the, of course, I find our civilization is as advanced as its eyes are advanced, as advanced as its eyes are open. That means your eyes open to a certain rate, your physical eyes, but the eyes of your mind, I am telling you, it is like the sky. Your body is made of earth, your mind is made of the sky. And the sky cannot be measured. This is why ultimately life is made to deliver the creature into its ultimate state. Kind of like you have stepped out of non-existence into existence, and there will come a day where you will step out of existence into non-existence. And so, even though I'm speaking very casually about this, but that is the nature of life. That things come and go, but what remains is the value giver. Emotions are like tidal waves. You know? You can't really, what it is like you either like surf right the wave of the emotion consciously, or at some point the emotion has to come back to a backup system of thought. You know, that means when somebody gets angry, we try to talk reason, talk sense to that guy, you know, to that angry person. You know, because anytime you get angry, you put a box over your head. You feel what you see is the true justification, so you feel you're authorized to be violent. When you believe your eyes, then you can be fooled easily. But if you don't believe in beliefs, what world would that be? How would it be like? As if somebody comes and asks you, hey man, do you have a belief? And you're like, what is a belief? You hold on to the idea of yourself too seriously. You, in some sense, miss out on the kind of intelligence your vulnerability would give access to. So right now, the way I'm speaking to you, if it was 2011, I would have started just the speech by with a incredible kind of unconscious I had a giant box over my head. And when I say giant box, I was attempting to be like Napoleon. Not in regards to politics or anything, and just whatever I did, I wanted to go to that extreme. Because when I was super young in my grandmother's house, there was a picture of Napoleon on the wall, like a rug where it was like Napoleon was made on that rug, and the rug was on the wall, and it's still like, of course their house has changed, but like the rug's still there. And I remember looking at that rug, that picture of Napoleon on the horse, And that picture seemed as if it seemed so elevated. It seemed kind of like enlightening. You see, archetypes, when they first are introduced to you, they are divine. You know, it's like, who doesn't like a gift, you know? So life is giving you gifts at first, and you've gone to. Which moments do you allow to continue beyond your belief? What is the, is it like, you tell me, dear listener, do you feel anything we say, any sound we make can be the truth? Language is its own universe. It's this, I call it the linguistic simulation. The source of language is the presence of attention which is not in time. For once the true transition comes, if truth is true, nothing changes. If truth is an illusion, still nothing has changed. So if truth is truth, it is, in some sense, nothing has changed. If it's an illusion in a truth, still nothing has changed. If it's an illusion in an illusion, you know, it's as if there never was a truth. But if it is a truth in the illusion, then it's a paradox in the universal design. It's kind of like trying to divide a number by zero and kind of realizing the piece of paper just without you touching it starts, you know, what's the term? Begins balling up on its own and throwing itself in the trash. Imagine somebody who wrote something so ridiculous that the piece of paper just cut itself, smushed itself, and threw itself in the trash. As if the notebook was like, get out of here, buddy, with these sentences. You know? The mind is way more multidimensional than the body. The mind is the allowance of the body to experience itself in many ways, is it not? And so this mystery is here. Pretty much human beings are given this giant unknown. It's as if the human beings were given this gift and the whole species climbed this giant box to see what's inside. And when they got to the top, they saw it was the unknown. And this is why when you see a black hole in outer space, you're actually also seeing a black hole in your inner space. And so language, I navigate it. So when I, for example, speak to you, I am piloting sound pretty much and symbology. And so I'm playing around with the linearity of communication and its non-linearity, simply because some people, when they speak in accordance to like a sort of syntax. They speak in accordance to sentence structure. So their mind is kind of like, they're in their mind, they're reading over sentences in an abyss, like sentences are appearing in an abyss. Okay, so they think through language, through in that sense. But when you see behind your eyes, let's say a movie, and when I say when you see a movie, of course the imagination, it's like, what? It's like, isn't it hilarious, guys? We're given imagination, but then we have levels of what is real and what is unreal. Isn't it hilarious? It's as if we're given freedom of speech, but we're told not to say some things. It's like, great. Thanks. This kind of freedom of speech seems like it could use an update, you know? Your attention is divine. Let me explain. Simply because wherever it goes, it animates, it gives life to. You cannot stare at something and either change that thing or change yourself. For example, somebody who's used to eating sugary products will look at a sugary product next time and their hand will reach for it. But before their hand touches the sugary product, do you see? It's as if there comes a moment where the potential of another result of reality can occur. The point is, life is not just about the right actions. It's about what moments are conscious and what moments, because you don't care about them, are being unconscious programs are affecting you. We can stand as a body howling a mind as inside a brain. We can stand as a mind, a field of intelligence projecting a body into a conscious being. That means it's kind of fascinating. It's as if like the mind is never in the body. Did you know? But the brain is in the body. But the mind, the intelligence that this brain has, like, woo. We gotta all slow hand clap for our brains. Simply because so many parts of them took so long to develop. It's as if the brain, a certain million years passed and this part of the brain developed and whatnot. And another part, and so it's like it's this long chain of events. Here's the challenge of mankind, the next grand Rubik's Cube of civilization to solve. It is that how can we build the future without changing the past? Anybody who tries to answer this, your vision, your mind will give you commands to do what to do next. It's a question where once you really ask it, the context and concept of civilization merge. Do you know, I have literally had moments where I was overwhelmed by such movement of various streams of thought in my mind. So much I felt like you know, a cup full to the brim and it's pouring beyond the brim. So I felt my mind was overloaded, and it was hilarious because it was as if like automatically my palm went right on my forehead. And when I did that, it was like it's like we have headaches and then we have mind aches, you know. And of course I'm being playful. Language can be a cruel mistress or a benevolent friend. The world can appear in many ways. And you have to choose how you wield thought. You're never your weapon, though. Even though when you fight, your weapon becomes a part of you. This is kind of secret to battle. That means right now, me and you are, of course, in 2019, we don't have to pick up swords and go defend our village from like people with, other swords. With other, like the armies of like something like back in the day. Nowadays, it's as if more of the world does not care about physical strength, I think nowadays the world cares about creative value. So they want, it's like the world is getting bored, and anybody who comes and sings a new song, it's like, yo. It's kind of strange, you know? I find the mind, anything that it hears, it instantly attempts to become just to see if it can become it. This is why our egos suddenly manifest and pull us, but the ego is not the reason why you're doing the action. The ego could be a reason of the values you identify. You know, that means somebody doesn't know a place and so they're lost in a place and so they have to ask for the address, right? And so that moment is a moment where the person has to forget their knowledge base, their universe of what they know, and literally stop that and listen to another person's universe. Because that's the beautiful thing about language. It's such an advanced technology simply because it cannot be destroyed. Let me tell you why. Because any word that is said, it's coming from one person's universe and it's appearing as a sort of sound pattern where another person, in accordance to their experiences and their universe, takes that satellite dish of communication. What I'm trying to say is the world that we're in exists inside each person differently. Therefore, it can never be lost. There's this Cherokee story of this chief elder who's gathered around with all the chiefs from the other tribes. And as he's about to make a speech, in that instant, coincidentally, his young grandson runs up to him and says, "Grandfather, tell me a story." And the grandfather, who was about to make a speech in front of all the chief elders, suddenly realizes his grandson is there, and something fascinating happens. He kneels down on the level of his grandson. That's how much he respects the youth. And he looks at his grandson and he says, "I will tell you a story." And before he starts, he looks at all the elders as if like, "Listen up, folks." It's like, "Listen up, guys. You'll learn something too, you know?" The grandfather and the chief elder says with a very loud voice to his grandson, "It's the story of two wolves. One wolf is a black wolf, pure black wolf, you know, pure black color. And this wolf represents the darkness, the chaos, the inefficiency, the incapability, the end, whatever you'd like to say." And then he says to his grandson, "And there is a white wolf, pure white." The white wolf represents purity. It represents simplicity. The black wolf represents complexity. They're not per se colors, they are per se archetypal values. Or modes. That's a better way of saying it. And so the grandson's like, whoa, so these two wolves are fighting? And the grandfather looks at his grandson and says, yeah, and also these wolves are inside you. And when he says that, he also looks at the whole tribe, and it's as if all the tribal elders are like, holy shit, this man's spitting wisdom. You know? You know? And so what happens is that the grandson is fascinated. There are these giant wolves fighting inside him. And the grandson asks the ultimate question, which wolf wins? And the grandfather smiles at his grandson and looks at the elders with a sort of next level might. And he says, the one you feed. In other words, where your attention goes, you get defined by. Be careful how your attention moves and be the conscious pilot of it. It's like, what's the point of evolving for 4 billion years if we don't want to be conscious of our life, okay? It's like, that's the only thing we're given. You know, it's like, matter, sure, like you can manage it, maintain it, but conscious living has to do with living a journey. And in the journey, realizing, like the Zen master Matsuo Basho, the journey itself is my home. The journey itself is my home. In other words, what the hell do I do with all this changing stuff? You just make it your home, you know? It's like you build your house on a changing universe, you know? Inside a changing universe. It's like, that's a good place to build a house. In an endlessly kind of strangely expanding and kind of attracting cosmos. You see, it's like the cosmos conceptually is like a vending machine. You choose what it delivers because you choose how the values arise. And I just hope that everybody realizes every day happens once. Like, that's something that, like, it's kind of alarming and exciting at the same time. It's like when you realize you live every day once, that means like everything you do, you can only do it once, and then you move to the next level, next stage of your moment. You move on to the next part of the day, next part of the day. So what I'm saying is that pretty much when you wake up and there's a series of actions, and you do these actions consciously, and you try to also advance the level and the scope of your freedom or whatnot. But I'm saying it's like pretty much it's a series of actions. And so how you conduct these actions is, I realized, and I think this is a very interesting way to see it, that you have to attempt the ultimate mastery. That means you have to legit in every moment of your life wonder about how the greatest version of that would be. And let me tell you why you wonder it. Because you want to see what it would be. You see, you're inspired by the unknown to see where the roots of your knowledge lead. The roots of how you know things lead. How the intelligence is even here. How the voice has stepped out of the silence. There's this poet named Hafez. He says, "One regret, dear world, I hope not to have on my deathbed." Is that I did not kiss you enough. This guy said this 700 years ago in a mystical context. Like, what he meant was that he hoped that in his lifetime he'd kneel down and kiss there. And we have this guy, I don't know why I'm going on this stream, but we have this like guy named Thich Nhat Hanh where he says walk as if your feet are kissing there. So you see, human beings have realized that, you see, if you look at something and you don't care about it, it's as if you're wasting your time. But if you look at something and you care about it, it's like that's the only time you have to care about it. But if your mind realizes it's not just your body and it's not just your thoughts, rather what you are is the presence of the whole moment. Like, just take in what I'm saying. It's the edge of your awareness. And your awareness is like, if the flames of your awareness are flickering both internally in the subjective realm and the objective realm. And you know, the educational system is hilarious. Let me tell you why. Because they have to make it complex. Let me tell you why. Because if they make it simple, the reason for the axiom, it's like you find, it's like, okay, why design it this way? You could design it any other way. So any system that goes back to its core, it becomes suddenly fully known, and therefore it loses its shape. So this is why many institutions, many people who originate things, they keep the source hidden. Right? This is why we have such a kind of filthy society. I should say like filthy like that, but what I mean is it's like so many artificial personalities dwelling in a day that it's madness. I feel like a gladiator in a gladiator, you know, like in the Colosseum back in the day. When I walk in society, it's as if like you have to look at the world and shout, "Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?" You know, like the movie Gladiator, you know? The world changes. What can you do? You know, in life, there are those who will be able to see your mind, and there will be people who will not be able to see your mind. And those people who do not see your mind, they have never seen you. They have never seen, they have never even wondered about how your intelligence is arising. You see, they say I kind of noticed something hilarious. A lot of stand-up comics do, and they come and suggest about the kind of troubles of like men listening to women. You know, like people having issues with listening, right? And I realized kind of like what it is. It's like what would be a sort of life hack to this for men, you know? And it's kind of like having the curiosity to just see what the minds, what the brains around you generate. So that means when I enter a moment, I don't have an opinion on anything. I don't even have an opinion on myself. I just watch what happens, and as actions, kind of like the chessboard, are played out, they have different implications, different suggestions in accordance to what the person is acquainted to. That means every person will be drawn towards the familiarity to a certain context. Kind of like if we have dared to say there are archetypes in the kind of personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung would say, we can say that simply. I guess this would kind of fit into Carl Jung's model, where it's like the person, the collective unconscious is what do I say? Our lives may end, but life doesn't end. It's a pattern. Whether it's a dance of atoms, or if it's the dreams of thoughts, or if it is, in some sense, the transcendence of souls, or it is the union with God, or if it's a return to the ultimate non-existence. Every room you enter, you are a new being. Every moment you live further in this life, the data is constantly being accumulated. It's like, just like the body requires food and food goes into your stomach, similarly the brain consumes vision. What it means is it has a hunger to know what the beep is going on in this world. Systems. The systems change if the attention of the change system can be directed. Governance ultimately comes down to abidance with nature. Anybody who goes against, nature, they will realize, okay, you didn't listen to how nature moves, so you are hurt. It's like good for you or bad for you. It's like there are certain ways that you have to lift yourself up from what you can. So any hole, any problem you fall into in this life, first attempt yourself. First attempt it yourself, and then add greater dimensions of what else can advance the moment. And of course, words are words until actions turn them into worlds. So, thanks for tuning in, guys. These are the moments of our lives. What I feel that could be a TV series, the moments of our lives. And remember, in the darkest hour is when the brightest moment arises. Sometimes just if you endure a sort of suffering, you'll eventually find some sort of rope to hold on to, some path to walk. And I'm telling you, just realize, I'll tell you how fascinating this is. Just shift your mindset from what I want from the world to what the world could want from me. And when you change that mentality, something unique happens. You become, I don't want to say you become a servant of the cosmos, but you become a being who is not holding the sword and shield just in its hand all the time. You learn to live comfortably in a world where, gravity pulls us down. What can you do? It's like when somebody throws something across the room so somebody else can catch, and if they throw somewhere else and the person's like, hey man, what are you doing this? And you're like, hey man, blame it on gravity. Who said my aim was wrong? Gravity messed it up. The play of dimensions. The rise and fall of the intensity of thought that can turn into an emotion. You can generate an emotion if you just repeat like your thoughts loop for a while. This is kind of a reason why nowadays so many people have stress and depression, is because there's a loop. Literally, you're somehow, you haven't still snapped yourself out of realizing it is not okay to look down upon yourself, because you're an ancient evolutionary process. It's like, how dare you disrespect the species by looking down on yourself as a human being? It's like the species is here. That's like kind of like my ultimate war chant to the future generations. Hey guys, the species is here. Do something about it. I often think about this. I don't know where I read it, but it was like the story that the sage said, you have only two options in this life. You either trust it or you distrust it. And when you trust it, when you ultimately trust life, what happens is, strangely, life seems to have trusted you. As if the value of phenomena was being kept by you. In a science fiction novel of mine, this is a playful idea I'll share before I end off. This novel of mine, it's still unpublished, but it's there's a scene, there's a situation there where literally it's in the year 5025 and there is still a United Nations, but this United Nations now has a galactic sector. And the galactic sector is the world is divided between the futurists and the traditionals. The futurists are those who believe they're eternal beings, as if there are extraterrestrial citizens in this society I've designed in this sci-fi setting, where the extraterrestrial citizen, it believes it is eternal. And so the world is divided between seeing time be linear and seeing time not be linear, as if people are conscious of it. The human beings have their lifespans are much longer, like they live thousands and thousands of years, you know. Anyways, there is so the story begins in the United Nations in the year 5025, where there's ambassadors from not only many species of the animal kingdom, all the species of the animal kingdom, but there's also ambassadors from extraterrestrials and other multidimensional beings and whatnot. And so, in this kind of future United Nations, the whole thing is starting with this situation where a cow, like an actual cow, you know, with advanced robotic like technology connected to it, is like literally coming up to the stage, you know, and it starts speaking in the microphone in this UN stage. So imagine a cow speaking in the United Nations, because mankind has authorized advanced technology to allow its mind for greater freedom. And so it's as if the discussion of the cow is like saying, like, how so many years it's as if cows were butchered and they were on the menu for human beings, and the cow is asking for freedom and reparations from this, and simply realizing that any sort of reaction in an animalistic way reduces the value of the world. That means you are either honoring your world or you're dishonoring it. And anytime you're not being true to yourself, you have dishonored the world even to begin with. It's in those moments, I would say, ride the waves until you find a way to sit on the beach and then recontemplate jumping in. It's all about speed. You see, if you bring speed, fear goes away. Literally, how can I tell you, the mind can transform phenomena. So what that means is I look at a candle, okay, and when I look at this candle, the thought of the word candle comes into my mind, imagine. Now, I not only see the candle, but I'm also aware of the thought of the candle. Now, I'm aware of not just the candle, not just aware of the thought of the candle, but I'm aware that I'm aware of both of them at the same time. Anytime we reach this state, this is where cause and effect begin being comprehended instantaneously. They become observed in an instant. This is, believe it or not, Satchit Ananda in yoga. The awareness that is aware it is aware, but realizes it is also aware that it is aware that it is aware. And so that sort of regression kind of liberates. It's as if like any attempt to be alive is the voice of the whole cosmos. It's as if the person asks in the job interview, all right, sir, so tell me about your past. And the employee says, what past? I am the poetry of the cosmos. And, the employer hears that and he's like, okay, sir, we're not looking for the poetry of cosmos at this company. But what I mean is that we are the result of the actions of the uncontrollable to some degree. And so we have to live with that. You live with it, and the moment you accept something, you can play with it and be playful with it. The moment there is internal something's not authorized internally, which in some sense is the whole, like there's a certain school of thought that believes the reason people have egos is not just from the faculties of the child's conditioning, it's just the fact that the person has been rejected by the divine will. So it's like, holy shit, you don't just need history books, you need to be accepted by the divine will as a free will. It's like what is the self-help industry doing? And so this sort of kind of I don't know how to say it, but it's kind of like you begin to realize the unknown abyss, and that's when you calm down, and then you start centering as the self of selves. You begin looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing you are not only aware of phenomena, but you are being phenomena. Do you see the profoundness of that? You're being what you're doing. What you're doing is adding dimension to what you are just being. So if they say, where is civilization built, and there was a multiple choice kind of idea, like it's like some people said civilization was built on the surface of the earth. Imagine everybody said it. So yeah, obviously civilization is on the planet earth, so it's on earth, so that's where civilization is. But imagine we wondered, well, where is all that civilization? And that this is one of the mysteries of of like the world in some sense. You see, there are certain wonders of the world, like, oh my god, pyramids of Egypt, how did slaves do this, you know? I hope this talk has served you. I feel that Zen Master Dogen kind of hit a home run when he responded to someone about what enlightenment is in some sense. And a better word for it would be Buddha's path, okay? Because you got to take into consideration how ideas are raised from the dirt as well. So it's as if Zen Master Dogen, let's say playfully, one day, he stepped out of the Zen monastery and kind of like enjoying this atmosphere and the space, and suddenly this guy running for work who was late suddenly notices Zen Master Dogen was randomly there early in the morning. And this early riser who's running to work, I mean, it wouldn't make sense if he's an early riser, he's still running to work. Okay, maybe he likes running to work. This guy who's running to work this guy who's running to work sees Zen Master Dogen. Let's say he's late for work, and he sees Zen Master Dogen. He's like, "Oh my God, this enlightened guy's here. What do I do? Let me ask him." Right? And so the guy just stops for a second, as if it's like his boss's complaints can wait. Let me just ask Zen Master Dogen a question. And the guy asks Zen Master Dogen a question, and it's strange because Zen Master Dogen rarely responds if the person is insincere. And this guy is, because he's late to work, he's authentic. So he's like, hey man, what is enlightenment? Tell me. Right? Like he's saying it like that. Zen Master Dogen looks at him, and it's as if it's not the man asking him the question, it's the whole cosmos, and he responds. And he says, to follow Buddha's path, you must study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to awaken to the nature of all things. That man, after that moment, never stopped running to work. And it's very, very true once you forget of body, the material. Much blessings and namaste.